What's going on, everyone? We've got some massive spoilers to go over today. We got some spotlight deck reveals, which means that we got a lot of cards revealed. We also have a couple of cards that I happened to miss the last couple of days because I was traveling. So we've got just a bunch of cards to talk about, and some of them looks pretty incredible. So let's dive right into it. Huge thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. Special shout out to Hawks Nest Gaming. And let's dive into some brand new ones that were revealed just a couple of hours ago. Osha starting us off with Cunning Heroism. This one, similar like the Qui-Gon or Anakin out there, has a little bit of interaction with both heroism and villainy cards. So if a friendly heroism unit was defeated, this phase you can play a villainy unit from your resources, ignoring its aspect penalties. Villainy aspect penalties, I should specify. If you do, you may resource a card from your hand. Now, this is interesting. We've seen, ignoring aspect penalties in general, but this one only allows you to ignore villainy aspect penalties. So basically, let's say you're playing Cunning Vigilance, which is typically the way you go in these decks because of Anakin's 6-drop, where you get the double -3/-3 trigger. But let's say you're playing Vigilance. You can play Villainy Cunning and Villainy Vigilance cards in your deck. Guys, guess what we're at right now? We've got Pre-Vizsla and Chimera in the meta still. This could very well be a very strong option pairing in with heroism. So in specific, this particular meta right now that we're in, or the last set that we had, has some extremely powerful villainy cards that you are interested in playing. Now, you do have to have heroism units be defeated, so you need to curve out with your heroism cards, which might be a little bit tricky, and then you could go ahead and do it on the same turn. So it is kind of a little bit of setup, but at least the payoff is there. The question is whether the setup can be there. I don't necessarily think that is the case right now. But on the flip side, we do have a 6-drop 5/6 with Saboteur. And this just says action play a villainy unit from your resources. You could just straight up play a villainy card from your resources. This is really, really powerful. Now, you do replace the card with a card in your hand, not from the top of your deck. So you're not like drawing free cards, which is something kind of interesting. The biggest thing here is Chimera and Pre-Vizsla, right? When you get to this stage of the game, you can just drop those cards in. That's strong. It's a very strong potential option. 5/6 Saboteur means that it can bypass those Sentinels and it can stay alive in a lot of cases. So you kind of just maybe wait till 7 resources to start playing your villainy cards. What I do like about this is that you don't have your villainy cards gunk up your hand. Right? In the past, if you're going to do this like mixed strategy, you kind of have to go ahead and have your cards that you can't play in your hand for a period of time before you can set up the situation in which you can play them, which kind of sucks. In this case, you could just resource those, kind of like Armorer does, and then you don't have to have this situation where you're drawing into nothing and you can't play anything in a turn. Still can happen, but at least it lightens the load a little bit. So very, very intriguing. I think if there is any time in which this is a strong ability, it is now. So there are some options. I don't necessarily think this front side's very good. We've seen like Chancellor Palpatine in the past where it revolves around like, okay, gotta have this heroism unit die and then I can play these villainy cards. It was really tough to get to work. And the only time it did work was when you were playing like this massive aggro strategy, which, well, it was just kind of a weaker aggro strategy compared to some other options out there. So I don't think Osha's front side ability is good, but 6-drop 5/6 Saboteur is decent. Very solid stat line, and you can just play villainy cards on attack or on the action here with her just baseline. So maybe you wait till 7 to deploy. Maybe there's another 6-drops that you want to play. And again, you can play those villainy cards, and then you do have some payoffs like Anakin and such. Maybe we'll have more payoffs soon. So I don't think this is a terrible leader. I think it's going to be tough to set up, and I don't think she's terribly strong, but if there was a spot for her, it would be now. Moving on, we've got Sando Aqua Monster. This is an 8-drop Vigilance card, 5/9 with Grit. If you control a Naboo base when you play it, you may defeat any number of ground units with combined power equal to or less than this unit's power. Deal damage to this unit equal to the combined power of the defeated units. Very, very interesting in how this works. Always a bigger fish, huh? We have basically something that comes down and we can kill 5 power units. And then this becomes a 9/4. So you get a 9/4 that kills a 5-drop or less, or a 5-powered unit or less. In some situations, you get a 9/4 that is able to kill 2 lower powered units. For 8 resources, I don't think this is terrible. right? That you get the immediate trigger of being able to kill something when it comes into play. The issue I see here is this slot, this like high cost defeat something when it comes into play, is directly competing with Pre-Vizsla. And I think this is just straight up worse than Pre-Vizsla, like by a large margin. Instead of getting a 6/6 with a couple of other bodies alongside of it, you get a 9/4, which kills one thing instead of, I guess it can kill multiple things, but it doesn't come with other things alongside it. And on top of that, you are looking at the power versus toughness. And I think generally speaking, toughness is a little bit easier to manipulate than power, which, you know, leads to Sando Aqua Monster being a little bit weaker. Also doesn't hit things like Devastator, for example. It also only works with ground units to be able to hit. Now, that said, it's very tough to compare something to Pre-Vizsla, as it's like the best controlling payoff that we've seen since Set 1. So, not really fair there. I do think this is a perfectly reasonable card. It's perfectly playable. It's a solid, top end mid-range / controlling option, especially if you don't want to wait till 10 resources in heroism, for example. I think this is a totally fine card. Nothing too strong, nothing too terrible about it. Kills something when it comes into play and is a big threat on its own. So nice 2-for-1. Not really that bad. Moving on, though, we've got some Acolyte cards. Soul going in here. We've got 2-cost ground unit in Cunning Heroism. It's a 2/2 shielded. On attack, this unit gains Sentinel for this phase. I actually really think this card is quite strong. It's a Force Jedi card with the 2-cost. It's really easy to make good. Shielded, we've seen 2/2 shielded be good. And this one, if you're looking for Sentinel, this will do it. It also works really well with Osha, since it's going to be forcing your opponent to actually kill it. Now, there are a lot of Saboteur and nonsense going around where you can actually bypass Shielded, since, Imperial Armored Commando was a card that we were seeing a lot. And just in general, Shielded has been a prominent component of a lot of the previous couple of sets. A 2/2 Shielded, though, is already good enough. I'm already excited to play this card. It's got the Force tag, which means we could set up for any Force bases that might be necessary. Overall, nothing really to talk about this card besides, this is just a solid, unique, 2-cost, very low. It's a 2/2 shielded. That's a very, very playable stat line. And then it's got this added effect of, if you care about being able to block your opponent's attacks with Sentinel, it's going to force your opponents to hit this. So everything just overall solid. I think if you're playing an aggressive deck, the Sentinel component is going to be potentially weaker because your opponent's going to be forced into decision. It depends, though. If you're playing a more value-oriented deck and you do care about that Sentinel, it's going to be far better. So, not bad at all. We got May here. This one's a 3-cost ground unit. It's got Cunning, Vigilance, and Villainy. It's a 2/4, and it's Ambush, Shielded, Grit. This card is amazing. Amazing. Just think about how this ends up coming down. So, first off, we have a Soul that's got Heroism. We're looking at a Vigilance Cunning card. Okay, this clearly is meant to go in Osha, and it's clearly meant to set up for May. That's the type of thought process anyway. So we'll probably have other Heroism cards that work out, right? I will say, though, by the way, with Soul, it does get absolutely brutalized by Cad Bane. So hopefully Cad Bane's banned by then. I'm just assuming Cad Bane's going to be banned by then. May, though, this is a Force Sith unit. So immediately you can think Thousand Cunning. Ooh, we've got something brewing here, right? It works excellently in any deck that the Stranger wants to go in. We have an Ambusher that comes down. It's a 2/4. So you ambush something, deal 2 damage to something, maybe take 2 to 3 damage. So you get a 4/2 that is then shielded with Grit. And I say a 4/2 because maybe you take 2 damage on this, and then that Grit comes in. It's kind of like a Shin Hati, but you get to attack immediately when it comes into play. And that 2 damage can be relevant. It also could just be a little bit weak, right? You're not oftentimes killing something with this, but you do get to impact the board at least slightly. And then you do get a shielded whatever stat line is left over. So it's kind of like a Shin Hati. And it's got the Force tag, which is very, very relevant. Immediate addition for me into the Thousand deck. It's also a unique Sith unit. Always 2, anyone? Always 2? Question mark? Revan? Hello? But it just looks awesome. Awesome card. And then we got Khmer. This is a 1-cost ground unit in Cunning Villainy. It's a 3/1. When defeated, you may discard the top card of your deck. If it's not villainy. Give a weakness token to an enemy unit. So this is kind of like a callback to Greedo back in the day, where you play this, you attack with it, kind of a solid 3-1, and then when it dies, you get to do some sort of effect. In Greedo's case, you were dealing 2 damage to something. In this case, you get a -1 token. Now, you're not going to hit every single time with this. If you're playing in the Osha style deck, or if you're playing the deck that's going to care about different aspects, cool. You probably have like a 30 to 40% chance to hit something off this that's not villainy, and that's kind of similar to what Greedo was. I don't think it's as strong as Greedo because 2 damage immediately is pretty nice, but permanent weakness token can be pretty effective, and it's a 1-cost 3-1. It's totally reasonable just to play this as a unit, especially if you're in a more aggressive deck that wants to kind of curve out, right? So really, really quite strong. Nothing too incredibly powerful about this. Like, it's not going to break the game or anything. And that's kind of how it was with all these cards that we talked about. Like, I really like May because I just like the ambush shielded grit component of it, but it's not like going to be absolutely devastating for your opponent. Or Soul is just a 2-2 shielded. Like, when you have these really low cost cards, 2, 3, 1, you really don't need a lot for these to be good. You just need to have some baseline stats that you care about, and then some sort of effect maybe attached to it nowadays with a little bit of power creep that is reasonable for you to activate, and then it's going to be playable. And that's where Chimera is. So pretty solid here as well. Now we dive into the period of cards that were revealed with some of the Spotlight decks. So first off, we got Back to Tank. This is a 1-cost Vigilance Command upgrade. It's got Fortify, which means you attach it to the base. When you play it, you heal up to 3 damage from a non-vehicle unit. And in action, you defeat this upgrade, put a non-vehicle unit from your discard pile on top of your deck. So essentially, it is just a heal up to 3 damage from a non-vehicle unit. That's basically what it is. Yes, you can basically rebuy one of those cards that you put into play by putting it on top of your deck. It's not drawing you a card. This could be potentially relevant later on in the game. Any deck that's going to care about Fortify might care about this. However, the thing I want to mention with this is, if you're playing a deck that has playing a lot of these weird upgrades for your base, you're going to find it hard pressed to have cards that actually want the when played effect from Back to Tank. You need the balance of like Sentinels, and then you need to play Back to Tank afterwards. Obviously, we see like the new Tarkin that cares about Fortify. So maybe we have some more cards to work with it, but healing 3 damage from a non-vehicle unit is not really a playable card in general. So it needs to be some sort of synergy with the upgrade Fortify component. We've got Carrion Spike. This is a 5-cost space unit in Vigilance Villainy. It's a 3/5 shielded. For each upgrade on your base, it's going to get +1/+0 and gains Restore 1. Now, my understanding here is that this Restore 1 is going to stack. So, each upgrade, you're going to get +1/+0, and then you can get that restoration coming in. So, 2 upgrades, it's a 5/5 with Restore 2. And it's got shielded. It seems like a pretty reasonable card. It's a capital ship, which is really, really important. Maybe there's some sort of Fortify Piet nonsense that we can come up with. Again, I like the Fortifies because it's not going on a unit, which means that your opponent doesn't have any way to interact with it besides just defeating the upgrades themselves. And yes, there are Outer Rim Constables and cards like that that are going to work well with it. And based on what we saw in the past, like pilots, we're going to see a bunch of cards that are specifically able to work with defeating these upgrades. Again, we've seen this in the past with the pilots. They're going to print cards that are going to defeat fortifications, so we'll have to see how that is. But this, again, if you're playing fortifications, a 4/5 shielded Restore 1 is not good enough generally for 5. A 5/5 Restore 2 shielded, now we're kind of talking about something that might be playable. So that's kind of where I think this is at. Champions of Endor, I love this card. This is huge. We talked about Ewoks. They just need a critical mass of them. Here's one that's going to be an absolute staple. We've seen this in the past with Imperial Dark Trooper, Battlefield Marine. It's a 2-cost ground unit, aggression, heroism. It's a 3/3 Ewok. It's a 3/3 Ewok for 2. It's literally just perfect in the Ewok deck. Absolutely perfect. These are the types of cards that we needed to see with Mandalorians, like I mentioned. There's not much to say about it. It's just an absolute must-have staple curve filler that is really kind of not necessarily above the curve from what we've seen, but honestly, it kind of is. Like, we see 2 4s, we see 2 3s, we see like 1 4s. 3 3 is a stat line that's oftentimes premium, and it's really, really awesome. So this, absolutely staple. Really, really excited to see this card. We've got Intelligence Agency. This is a 1-cost upgrade in Cunning Villainy. It's got Fortify. Attached base gains. You may look at the top card of your deck at any time. When played, you look at the opponent's hand, you may discard a card from it if they do draw a card. This is kind of like giving yourself a Thrawn 1 ability, like back in the early version of Star Wars Unlimited Spark of Rebellion. But it actually has some ways to interact with an opponent's hand. I really do think that these cards are kind of necessary in a lot of spots. Sorry for the pixel lossage, by the way. But, I mean, if a deck cares about fortifications, this does interact with your opponent's hand. Could be a sideboard option. It does allow you to filter and kind of mess with your library on the top of the deck, right? Like if you have cards that really do care about that, like as I have foreseen is something that could be interesting with Intelligence Agency, if anyone remembers that from Legends of the Force, where you're able to play the top card of your deck. There are a couple of cards like that with Cunning that allow you to play the top card of your deck. So maybe there's some synergy there. It also could just be like the Bazine or Garindin type effect where I just play it because I want to mess with my opponent's hand, and it's going to be kind of a sideboard option. Moving on, we've got Row Medical Shuttle. This is a 3-cost space unit in Vigilance Villainy. It's a 3/3. When played and on attack, you may heal 1 damage from another unit or base. So you get a 3/3 for 3, and you get to go ahead and restore 1 on play, and then you get to go ahead and restore 1 on attack. Now, it does affect units, which could be a little bit more relevant. I don't think this is going to be incredibly powerful. 3 for 3 in space is just a little bit too weak. Just lines up too poorly against a lot of other space units out there. And then healing 1 damage from the other units, generally in Vigilance Villainy, is not necessarily what you want to be doing. I mean, we do have Marok now and things like that, you know, maybe we get some value out of it, but those compete in the same resource cost, so not necessarily good in that regard. So maybe there's something here. I don't think so. I think the stat line is just a little bit too weak. But moving on, we have some other cards that showed up yesterday that I want to just highlight here. Particularly Hunters. This is a new legendary 6-cost ground unit in Vigilance Command Heroism. It's a 4/7 clone. One play you choose to, you can choose the same option more than once. You can give 2 shield tokens out, or you can attack with the unit. Even if it's exhausted, it can't attack bases for this attack. So kind of get like a Mon Mothma trigger from when we saw that. But getting 2 shields out when it comes in, 4/7, give 2 shields out, not bad. I mean, a 4/7 stat line for 6 is not great. It's kind of like the leader level stat line, which is not necessarily a great stat line for a unit to have. But 2 shields, you can give it to yourself or a leader or another unit in general. Totally fine card. There's no synergies with this. It does kind of compete at a good resource level in that when you're in this stage of the game, you kind of want to be doing something a little bit more powerful than just giving out some shield tokens. So I think that this is going to struggle a little bit from that regard. But overall, I mean, totally fine card. It's not incredibly powerful. I don't think the attacking with the unit, even if it's exhausted, is going to be that strong. However, and this is the other situation which this could be good. Maybe this is just a 6-drop 4/7 that I get to attack with 2 units immediately, and I get to cheat on action economy. So maybe like Ahsoka cares about this, right, as like a top-end option. But then we've got like Luminara, which I think Luminara is better fit, right? Or maybe you could play Hunter and Luminara together, though, the clone and the Jedi, right? So you play Hunter, get to attack with a couple of units, Luminara, to attack with a couple of units. So you're putting things into play on the board, but then you're also being able to cheat on actions. So maybe Hunter's good for that reason. So not bad. We've got Yord Fandar. I wanted to mention this one as well because, well, we saw Osha. This is a 2-cost ground unit in Vigilance Heroism. It's a 2/4. And, well, later on in the game, when you got some damage, it's going to have Sentinel. So it's going to force your opponent to kill it, which means that you can trigger the Osha ability potentially. Again, nothing too crazy to talk about this one. It's a perfectly fine card. It's got the Force Tech. It's a 2/4 stat line. It's 2 cost. You really don't need a lot for it to be good. And this one's going to be totally fine. And then we got Growth. This one is a weird common. It's a 5-cost event where you get to create a beast token. So it's a 3/3, by the way. You heal 3 damage from your base, and then you draw a card. I don't think this is good enough at all, but it's interesting to see a card with all this different effect on it. So you get to heal 3, you get to create a 3/3, and you get to draw a card. There are cards in the game that just kind of do more than that as just a unit. This is kind of like a jack of all trades, master of none, but the jack of all trades port is weak in every component of it. So like very, very weak. It's not even like average. If I were to consider, okay, what do I want from a 5-drop here event that does something like this? I would want a 5/5 out of this at least, probably, before I'd even consider it. A 3/3 is just not good enough. Not even close. Honestly, if this was a 6/6, I don't even know if it would still be played. If it was just a 6/6 random unit that doesn't care about any aspects or doesn't care about anything really, I don't even think that's good enough. So that just goes to show you how potentially understated this card is. But that is going to wrap it up for today. Oh, well, I forgot Chewbacca. Here we go. All right, this is the other one that I wanted to talk about because my patrons were actually going a little bit crazy talking about this card here. 3-cost ground unit in command heroism. It's a 0/5 Wookiee. Gains raid 1 for each exhausted resource you control. And then while each resource you control is exhausted, it gains overwhelm. So 0/5 is a terrible stat line, right? And you play this, it's going to be a 0/5. Even if it has raid 1, it's still a 0/5. I really wish this was +1/+0 for each exhausted resource you control, because then at least it gets defensive capabilities. And right now it has 0 defensive capabilities. That said, giving it overwhelm, you might have something there. People were talking about Anakin back in like set 3 Anakin, where you had the +2/+0 action and overwhelm. You can maybe get something going there, because this is going to have a lot of power in the late game. Like, imagine playing this. You play like Caloran Beck, and then you play Chewbacca, right? Dang. This could be like a raid 7. That's insane. Another thing to note is that it gets readied up by Neil. So like you play this after you play Neil. So you like play Neil, attack in, you play Chewbacca. It's a 3/5 with overwhelm. That's readied up immediately. Cool, right? That's not something that other cards can do. Similar to like the, if you've seen Eternal with the new Anakin from Twin Suns version, where you're playing cards like, oh my gosh, I forget the name. Back in set 2, there was a 1/5 with raid 2, restore 2. It's kind of something like that with Chewbacca. Later on in the game you go, if you have Neil on the board, let's say, and you do play Caloran Beck, it is a 7/5 immediately readied up card. I think that's where this card becomes really interesting, is in Premier with Neil. So Neil, already we've seen, has made waves in the format in terms of there's a lot of options to go with Neil, but it hasn't necessarily actually become like a meta staple. It has posed some interesting questions, and I think if we get some cards that work well with Neil going forward, we can see something really, really powerful. Of course, we've already seen something like that with Neil, with Eternal version of Anakin, because there are more cards that work with it. And of course, we have a very powerful ability in that regard. But I think Chewbacca, that's where the home could be. So interesting stuff with Chewbacca. That said, guys, what do you think about Osha? What do you think about some of these interesting new Force, Cunning, Vigilance cards? We've got some starter deck cards. I am really curious about Fortify and whether we're actually going to see a truly awesome, like, I'm going to upgrade my base the whole game and that's how I'm going to win. That could be sweet. And I'm so excited to see Champions of Endor. This might be the most excited I've been for a card for a little while, because I really want to see the Ewok cards work. And I really want to see a tribal deck like Ewoks just do some cool things. And the same thing goes with Gungans. We haven't really seen anything Gungan related, unless you want to count the fish that we just saw. So Champions of Endor, really awesome to see that we're actually going to get enough playable turn 1 plays to make Ewoks potentially work. That was the problem with Mandalorians. Bo-Katan was released. I'm like, awesome. This looks like an awesome Mandalorian. Wait till we see some more cards, and then Mandalorians are going to work. We saw no other Mandalorians. Like, there were no other 2-drops that I actually wanted to play. Like, now we've got, like, Champions of Endor. We've got Tebow in the mix. We've got Wickets. We've got Chief Chirpas. We've got, I don't know if I mentioned Tebow already, but there's, like, 2 or 3 really powerful turn 1 plays that I really want to see and actually do some really powerful things. Like, in a vacuum, they're just solid, except for maybe Chief Chirpa because you need more Ewoks there, right? But, like, this is what I want to see. Maybe 1 to 2 more Ewoks, and I'm convinced, right, that I really want to see these guys work. And we do need some, like, 3 to 4 drops as well, but Ewoks have, like, come up from nothing, right? Like, there were, like, no Ewoks besides maybe, like, the 1-drop Wicket that we saw from previous set that really didn't seem like, oh, I don't know where this fits. Well, now we know where it fits. That said, what about, some of the other cards we talked about the other day? Some Acolyte options and Chewbacca, maybe some Neil synergy there. Guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all for the next one.